What's happening, everybody? Ryan Thomas here on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Bills post-game show, reacting to all things Buffalo Bills. Of course, each and every week this show airs Wednesdays at 8. Thank you so much for tuning in. This show is presented by 26 Shirts. Welcome to everybody tuning in on the Buffalo Fan Base Podcast Network. Greatly appreciate you guys tuning in, as well as the followers, longtime followers that have followed me on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast journey on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Follow me there at Ryan Thomas Take. And of course, this is a recap where I will dive into the Buffalo Bills Week 4 victory over the Miami Dolphins, as well a preview of the Buffalo Bills' upcoming action against the Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 5, as the Buffalo Bills will be traveling to London. London is calling, and Jacksonville is hosting what should be a Buffalo Bills home game. I digress. It is what it is, but let's get right to it. The Buffalo Bills got it done today. Simply put, this was a game that the Buffalo Bills had to win, and they did. And they didn't just win this game, they dominated this game. Granted, the first quarter, second quarter, it was a tit-for-tat, cat-and-mouse game between the Dolphins and the Bills, as each team seemed like their offense was going to put up points on the board. It made me think that my prediction of this game was going to come true, and that whoever carried the football last, whoever had the football last, would win the game. And it became apparent as the game wore on that the Buffalo Bills game plan was one that, really showed up and showed out in terms of what we saw, obviously in this process. So the process, trust it, right? Trust it 100%, because this was a process that really, I think that the tip of the cap has to go to quite a few figures in this game, but this was a coaching performance that was done by Sean McDermott in the most impressive fashion possible. And realistically, we all, myself included, criticized Sean McDermott for what we saw on opening night, Monday night against the Jets. But ever since, this Bills defense has looked formidable, to say the least, as one of the best defenses in the National Football League, maybe the best defense in the National Football League. And more speed is seen on this defense than what most teams can handle. And kind of goes without saying, but when you look at the speed of the Dolphins, that's where I thought the Bills would have the most trouble, and yet the Bills were able to go tit for tat with the Dolphins speed-wise. They matched up with the Dolphins very well speed-wise, due to the fact that you had Matt Milano as well as Terrell Bernard out there, who was a definite speed upgrade at the middle linebacker position in comparison to Tremaine Edmonds, as it appears, over these last few games. And what really gets me excited about this Bills defense is just the evolution of their front four. Greg Rousseau has taken a step. Ed Oliver has taken a massive step forward. But this victory did not come without, I guess, some ups and some downs. And reports are circulating now that the Bills appear to have lost Tre'Davious White, for the rest of the year. And it's not just any injury, it's an Achilles injury, which for his position, playing corner, needing that ligament, that tendon rather, it's not good for his future and the future of his NFL career. In the moment, I completely understand why Tre'Davious White reacted, the way that he did in terms of just the emotion, right? But in the moment, I didn't like that. I didn't like the shoving of the trainer and things like that, but you understand that moment is imperative to him, knowing that his career is likely over, and you're not really thinking straight in that case, and that's when decisions are made that you'd like to take back probably. And that was one of them, right? So, I saw people, myself included, I spoke out and said I didn't like to see him shove a trainer, knowing what these trainers do and what they did last year for Damar Hamlin. Just was unfortunate to see that, but you understand it being the situation that Tre'Davious White was in and is in and will be in, for the foreseeable future as he's in this rehabilitation process once again, starting over and maybe forcefully hitting the reset button on his career sooner than he had wanted to. And that bears the question, how big of a loss is that to this defense? It's a massive loss. Even Trey White, coming off of the ACL injury, it appeared as if he was finally getting himself back, and he was finally putting himself in a new position, and yet it just did not work. So ultimately, that's what we unfortunately had to see with that loss. So with the loss of Trey White. So this is a tough one. It's a tough loss, no doubt about it in that sense. You come out with a dominant win over a Dolphins team that, I got to say too, everybody was propping this Dolphins team up to the point where it was like a setup match where, we're playing this game at home, but Miami's coming off a 70-point effort. How are the Bills going to be able to compete with that? Are they going to be able to compete with that? Many people, Phil Simms, saying, well, my Tostitos upset of the game is the Miami Dolphins beating the Buffalo Bills. Not quite. The Bills, the one thing that we can learn from this in terms of what happened, as I like to say, the Bills are still the king of the AFC East. They're still the kings, the beast of the East. And as I typed that out there for the tagline, the Bills still the beast of the East in this AFC division. And I think in terms of, what we are moving forward, just to provide you guys a little bit of clarity, let's look at this division. Okay, right now where it stands, Buffalo's 3-1. They're atop the division. Miami 3-1. Miami is a good team. I'm not, they got walloped today. They got their asses whooped today by the Buffalo Bills. But Miami is still a good team. They're a good team. That is true. But Buffalo has the ability, as we've seen over the years, to be a great team. They also have the ability to somewhat be their own worst enemy. And that's the only team that's standing in their way as much as any other team is themselves. And I've said that, many years, the last 3 years especially. But when this team performs, they're tough to stop. And, I'm going to say this as well. I've had a lot of, time over the last few, I guess, days or weeks rather, since that Jets game to kind of form my own take on a figure within the organization that is not looked at as fondly as he should be. And that's Ken Dorsey. And I have genuinely really liked what I've seen overall from Ken Dorsey this year, especially in these last 3 weeks. Week 1, they lost. That game, done, finished, done and over, dead and gone. But week 2, week 3, week 4, this offense has been humming. This offense has turned it on 38 points, 37 points, 48 points. So if anybody's got a problem with that, if you want to look into the silver lining, yes, there's moments where first half of this game, the Bills played kind of tit for tat, as I mentioned, with Miami. But I think Dorsey is leading a charge, pun intended, of an offense that is far more balanced than any offense that Brian Daboll successfully ran in Buffalo during his time here. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say this, and, Bills fans can agree with me or disagree with me. That is up to you. But I'm going Dorsey over Daboll all day long. I have loved what I've seen even in these last 3 weeks as opposed to week for years, what I saw with Dable. With Dable, it was never balanced. It was always obvious as far as who was getting the ball and when they were getting it. And I've liked what Dorsey has done. I do believe that we're going to start to see Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox utilized in the offense as we've seen these last 2 weeks. But it really seems like that concept is one that's evolving, and that's exciting. That's one that we want to pin our ears on and hope to see. But to me, I really like Ken Dorsey and what he's done. The run game has been crucial. He's made Allen into a more efficient quarterback. He's forcing Allen to take, the underneath, take the low, and then look high. And Romo said that a few times in regards to everything. So, I'm really looking forward to just the overarching season that's ahead of us. Now we're 3-1. We're atop the AFC East. I think these last 4 weeks, you look at the season in 4 quarters plus 2, it's been a hell of a season so far. They're 3-1, and they're taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars week 5 in what is a game that I think is very winnable, but you never know what is going to happen when a team is forced to travel a distance that they're not accustomed to for the first time all year long. So we'll throw that out there as well. But, of course, what would this show be without the Ryan Thomas takeover players of the game, where yours truly dives into the 3 players that broke out, that took over this game, that showed what they're capable of. And I think it goes without saying, but Josh Allen in this game was in elite form. I'm not talking elite like top 3. I'm talking 1 of 1. This is the version of Josh Allen that everybody loves. This is what makes Josh Allen the favorite son of Buffalo. Seeing him play the way that he has these last 3 weeks since that game against the Jets week 1, which was an all-time stinker by Josh Allen, to see him bounce back and put together 3 consecutive performances that are good, and this one really was great. This was one of the best games that he'd ever played in. We got to see the extension ability, the playmaking ability, the ability to extend plays and find an open lane to throw the football, and the awareness of some of these guys that aren't necessarily Stephon Diggs, but James Cook as an outlet, Dawson Knox as an outlet, Dalton Kincaid as an extension outlet, for Josh Allen to extend plays with his legs, find the open targets, not named Stephon Diggs is one thing, but for Josh Allen to do that and find Stephon Diggs as a target in this game is another altogether. Stephon Diggs showed today why he should be in the conversation along with Tyreek Hill, who was on the other side, of course, with the Miami Dolphins, as one of the best wide receivers, if not the best wide receiver in the National Football League. The 55-yard, run after the catch, touchdown, breaking tackles, consistently, yards after catch, being an open outlet for Allen when he extends plays, of course, as he's always been. It showed today that, to me, the Miami Dolphins might have an electric offense, but the Buffalo Bills have a dynamic, speedy defense, and they still have one of the best offenses in the National Football League that takes advantage of the opportunities that they're given back. And that's really big. When the defense is shutting it down, the offense has to take advantage of that. There was one drive when that kind of distance point, Bills were up 21-14, and the Bills didn't score a touchdown. But then Miami came back out, Buffalo's defense stopped them again, and then the Bills didn't look back from that point. It was just an onslaught. Each and every drive showed just what they were truly capable of. Short-term, long-term, however you want to look at it, the expectations were what was the reality of this game. The expectations met reality for Bills fans. So this was an awesome game, a phenomenal performance by Allen and Diggs, and as well as Greg Rousseau. I've talked about it these last few weeks, really since this season started, that Greg Rousseau is evolving. He is getting better. And the thought of Von Miller possibly returning in week 5 for the Bills versus Jaguars is massive, massive for this defense. So week 5 preview is necessary. And I think that I'm going to dive into that momentarily. But before I do, I just want to state that this team right now, this offense is one that, truthfully, I think that they are potentially the best this year. When you look at all the other teams, Cincinnati, they're not off to the great start that we all thought they'd be. Kansas City, they haven't really played anyone yet to the level of a Miami or whatnot. So I'm curious to see when the matchups happen, how will it all be sorted out? Will Buffalo continue this pace? But most importantly, I think this is the best that the Bills defense has been since Sean McDermott got here. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Sean McDermott is actually controlling it. I was very worried about that. The fact that McDermott would be the head coach as well as the D coordinator, but that has not been a problem. That's only been a benefit. Where Leslie Frazier played like a more of a coverage defense, Sean McDermott's sending linebackers. He's sending corners. He's sending safeties. I love it. I've loved what I've seen these last 3 weeks from the defensive coaching strategy standpoint, and I hope we see it continue. And I'm going to go to week 5 and preview the Buffalo Bills and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, the Jags are one of those teams that you don't know what you're going to get. They're a very young team. A lot of new pieces. Calvin Ridley, a new piece. Trevor Lawrence hasn't been in the league that long, expecting that next jump in his skill from year 3, moving forward, year 3 this year and beyond. Travis Etienne is a dynamic running back, but to me, the Jags defense has to be prepared to play this Bills offense. And there have been moments where these two franchises have collided, and for whatever reason, the Bills have a tough time offensively against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I don't know if that's going to happen heading into this one. I feel like the momentum is really on the Bills' side, coming off of 2 dominant victories where it looks like the Bills finally realize who they are and what their identity is as a team. Offensively, a balanced offense with skill position players that must get attention, must generate targets. And defensively, they're an opportunistic bunch that like to get after the quarterback, shut down the run game, and cover. I mean, all 3 phases of that defense in terms of pass rush, in terms of run defense, in terms of coverage. Obviously, it's a lot easier for the secondary when the front 4, front 7 can get to the quarterback. But monitoring how this secondary will look without Trey White is something to keep our eyes on. So I do believe that the Bills will win against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I do expect a point total of over 31 points. So I'm going to go in this one over 30 points. I'm going to go 31-17 Bills over Jacksonville. I think that this is a very winnable game for the Buffalo Bills, and one that they should really show that this AFC this year is theirs to take. So there you have it. That is the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm Ryan Thomas. Thank you so much for tuning in to the show tonight. And last and certainly not least, go Bills.